Welcome back, everybody, to the Spiritual Uplevel Podcast. I'm your host, Jeri Cristine, and I am so excited that we are blessed today with Iris Angellys coming to us all the way from Australia. Thank you for being here today, Iris.
It's such a pleasure. I'm so excited about today.
Awesome. Thank you. Well, I want to jump right into it because we have a lot to talk about. Iris, you're a chiropractor, also an author, also a spiritualist, and many other things. And I would like for you to just tell us a little bit about your journey. How did you go from being a chiropractor to a spiritual author?
Okay, I'm going to start very early on in the piece,
Okay.
which is I grew up in Denmark and felt like a pretty normal little kid. And then my mother and I moved to Spain. So I went from being just an average normal little kid to being somebody who stood out because I'm tall and blonde and blue-eyed. And in Spain, the area that I lived in, everybody was, black hair and dark eyes and, much darker in their skin than I was. And the Danish society, you may be aware, is actually quite good at doing men's and women's worth equal. Whereas in the south of Spain at the time, at least, there was a lot more sort of patriarchal, macho type culture. So I always felt very conspicuous and very, very uncomfortable and felt like I didn't fit in and, felt unsafe all the time. So that was through my teens. So I came out of my teens not really knowing who I was, not feeling comfortable in my own skin, feeling like the only worth I had was what could I provide somebody else with, as opposed to my own inherent worth as a human being and as a young woman.
I think so many people can relate to that.
Right?
Sadly.
Like this is an observation I've had recently. It's like women are taught not only to be responsible for their own emotions and for their own behaviors, they're also taught to be responsible for how somebody else will react to their presentation and their behaviors, and then to soothe if we've ruffled some feathers, right? So women are responsible for everything, and the counterpart are basically getting away with everything. And that gets my hackles up because it's just so unfair. But thankfully, things are changing. Yes. So that was a digression. So I then wanted to help people in some way and decided like chiropractic would be a good way to do that, because I wanted to help people with their health, and I knew how good I felt after a chiropractic visit. But I didn't want to do surgery and drugs and all that stuff. That just didn't sit with me. So I went and studied chiropractic in the UK and worked in the UK for a couple of years in Glasgow. And then I came to Australia. So the reason why I came to Australia was because I got married to an Australian man who, as it turns out afterwards, was a psychopathic alcoholic. So actually diagnosed psychopath alcoholic. So good choice, Annika. And sorry, edit that, Iris. And the reason why I chose a man who was as unsuitable as that was because I just didn't have any self-worth, and he seemed to like me and seemed to want to be married to me. So I said yes and dropped everything. I dropped my job, I dropped my continent, I dropped the ability to hop on a plane and see my parents within a couple of hours, to go all the way to the other side of the world and be with a man who really just wanted to use me and didn't really have any regard for me as a person. So that was my deepest, darkest moment. And I remember this time when he kind of called the marriage off for the third time. So he gave me back his wedding rings, and I stood there and I felt, okay, so I've got two options out now. One is I break for this man, but I wasn't prepared to break for him. I'd bent as far as I could. Or I go, okay, this is over, and I'm going to basically review everything I think I've been taught, because let's face it, parents teach kids things that kids take the wrong way. I'm not saying I got taught this, but the things I thought I had been taught, and examine them and keep the bits that work, and then find out what to do instead of the bits that don't work. And I obviously wasn't clear on that at the time. But ever since then, it's been a progressive journey of, reclaiming my worth and knowing that I have worth just because I am a human being and that I carry the frequency that I do. And because I am a woman and I carry the frequencies that I do. And then anything that I add is a bonus, and that I am not required to give of my own essence or my own essential energies that I need for me in order to help somebody else. It's actually about empowering other people to help themselves, so this codependent thing that I was in, even in my practice for a long time, is now getting unteased. Like, it's not my responsibility if you're not feeling good about yourself.
Yeah.
So chiropractic's been an amazing tool. I also studied applied kinesiology about 10 years into being a chiropractor. So for those of you who don't know what that is, it's using muscle testing to fine-tune the diagnosis and fine-tuning which aspect of the physical body it is that need help. So in this journey of helping people with their health, I started understanding bodies in a much deeper way. And I started understanding how bodies are these incredible, miraculous, exquisite beings in their own right, with their own intelligence, with their own desire to thrive, with their own needs and wants and desires. And those needs and wants and desires are, beautiful water, beautiful nourishing food, movement that makes you feel good, rest that, nourishes you, affection, laughter, expression, all those things. And that they communicate these things that they need to thrive to us. Like, they love us. Like, if you think about how we love nature, or how we love the night sky, or how we love a pet, like, our bodies love us in the same way. And our bodies are not a body. They're actually 50 trillion separate little entities, the cells, that make up this thing that we call the body.
I was thinking that sorry to interrupt. That is so fascinating to me, because I think that we are, like you said, I don't know if this is something I was taught, or just something that I think I was taught, but we believe for the most part that our body is it. Like, a lot of people believe that once the body dies, that's it. So first of all, I love how you're talking about our bodies love us. As I believe we're spiritual beings having a physical existence. So I totally agree with that. I also find it fascinating that our bodies really aren't necessarily, well, nothing is solid, right? Everything is made of little things moving at the same, at a certain frequency. And our body is made up of 50 trillion, is that what you said, the number 50 trillion little cells that may actually have their own intelligence and definitely want to stay alive. And so they have an inherent, desire, reason to stay alive, reason to tell us, our minds, to feed it nourishing food and water and do right things for it. And I sometimes wonder, like, who's actually in control? I'm going to leave it at that, because I have no answer for that. But that's something that can be pondered, for quite, I don't know. I think that's a conversation that could be had for this whole podcast, but let's continue.
Well, on the subject of control, is anybody or anything in control?
Yeah.
That's where I was going with that. I guess in terms of, we're the decision makers on whether or not we give our bodies what they ask for. Like, I'll just digress and talk about this energy thing. So obviously we are spiritual beings, so we're energy and frequency, and we inhabit a body that's made out of atoms that are made out of little packets of energy, like you said, that are zooming around, and that if you really look at that closely, they're really just energy as well. So we actually space and energy in our bodies. So we've got this being that inhabits this other being, and they're both energy and frequency, really, when it comes down to it, living in this world that's really just energy and frequency,
Yeah.
like, it's a whole lot more malleable than we've been led to believe.
Totally. Totally. start like pondering those things. It really started catapulting my spiritual journey, because it's not what we've been led to believe. It's so much more than that. And our bodies are, I think of our bodies almost like this like cosmic dance between spirituality, like other entities, let's say like angels and whatever loved ones that have passed on. Like we're the only ones with the physical body in the way that we perceive it. And that's, I don't know, that's fascinating. Like our bodies are definitely meant for more than what we realize, I think, because otherwise, why would this even exist? Why would this, I don't know, experiment of humanity even exist? Why wouldn't we just stay in the spirit form?
You know
Right.
what? I think the answer to that is actually boredom. So imagine you're a being and you're in this beautiful, amazing, lovely, gorgeous, you know, yummy space. And after a while, I think you'd be twiddling your thumbs and going, okay, I've done that now, I'm good.
Yeah.
I'm going to now dive into a physical body where I forget all of this. And, I get to experience pain, which when you're just in bliss all the time must look really enticing because it's something different, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I'm going to experience pain and I'm going to be in these situations where it looks like I'm being told that I'm worthless. And in that situation, I want to remember that I am this incredible, I love the cosmic dance analogy, by the way. I'm this incredible cosmic being currently dancing in a human body. And I'm going to remember that I am love. And I'm going to remember that I am a God spark. And I'm going to remember that, I have worth. Like that must look so enticing when you're not in the physical body and you have forgotten and you know how intense the pain is and how uncomfortable it can be to be here. But then the beautiful thing is then going through that journey and, like life is a process. It's not an outcome. Yeah. We go through this journey. And as you go through the journey, you go, hang on a second. This doesn't feel right. I think that's the one thing that got me through those early years. That I had this sense of, this is not how life is meant to feel. I just know that this isn't it. And I've got to get through this so I can get out the other end and find out, right? But
Yeah.
to actually uncover our multidimensional selves in the process of growing older, it's just, like I said, exquisite when you're through the vast majority of the really unpleasant parts, right? And you can reclaim your power and go, okay, so I am in this situation right now. So as an analogy, there's a lot of war out there right now. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I haven't yet met a single individual who actually thinks war is a good idea, right? And I've met a lot of people.
Yeah.
And when it's presented to us, we're presented with, okay, there's camp A and there's camp B, and you need to be pro camp A or pro camp B, and then we can all lock horns on who's right and who's wrong in this outfit. But the actual question that you're being asked is, are you pro peace? Are you pro human? Or are you pro war? Right? And if you are pro peace and you're pro human, don't get sucked into that locking horns and that discussion of who's right and who's wrong. Like, can you see people as people? And everybody basically wants to have a good life, wants to be healthy, have the basics covered, food, shelter, want their loved ones to be safe and thriving, want their neighbors to be safe and thriving. And that's both camp A and camp B, you
Yeah.
know? So can we look at people as other spiritual beings having a human being experience? And let's face it, there's a bit of injustice up there. Like, why do some people get to have everything and then they have as much as the poorer half of the world,
Yeah.
and that's not right. And somehow we're on this planet where that's currently the case. But can we look at other, and it's not just humans either, can we look at other entities? And I actually include things like animals and plants, which is obvious, but also the planet and also a rock, I
Yeah.
mean, everything has consciousness because everything is energy. And just because we don't understand that consciousness and maybe need practice to communicate with it doesn't mean it isn't there, right? Like we're the babies here, I
Yeah.
sometimes think, I think all animals know telepathy and we think we're so clever because we have language, right?
Yes, I've thought that. I think what you said though is just so beautiful, because that's one of the reasons I started this podcast, because I feel like the more conversations that are had just like this, the faster our world will change to one where we don't have war. Because like you said, I'm in America and we have a two-party system, which is so broken and so obsolete. And 90% of the people that I meet don't side with either one of them. Everybody's like right in the middle. And even, I've had so many conversations where there's two people that say, well, I'm really, I'm more in the middle. However, this is how I vote. And we start talking about it, and they literally are voting on the same thing. They just have a different perception of what each party told them. And I'm like, guys, we've got to get rid of it. We've got to do different. We have to I'm getting off topic. We have to listen to the spiritual essence, which you say one of your books is called Your Body is the Portal of Your Soul. And so going back to listening to that, how do we listen to our body? How does our body speak to us what our soul is trying to get through?
Yeah. So there's two aspects to your question. So one is, how does our body talk to us? Our body talks to us with sensations, right? Mm-hmm. Our bodies won't tell us when they're thirsty. Our bodies will tell us when they're hungry. Our bodies will tell us when we need to move. Like, have you ever sat at a computer for 3 hours and gone, holy cow, my shoulders are tight, right? Yeah. That's the body has been trying to tell you for 2 hours, hey, we need to get up and move around a bit, right? Our bodies will tell us when we're tired, like how many people reach for coffee in the morning to wake up and alcohol at night to go to sleep, mm-hmm. And that's because we use our bodies like a tool, and we feel like our bodies should just do what we want them to do without us really paying much attention to it. So that's why I'm saying, let's treat our bodies as a entity with its own intelligence, with its own needs, and let's treat it like a friend. Look, your body is the only being you are definitely going to be with for the rest of your life till your dying breath, right? Mm-hmm. Why not make it a friendship? Why not make it a partnership? Why not make it a fun experience for the both of you, right?
That's good. So many people make it the opposite.
Right? The body's the enemy. Yeah. Yeah. My body's betrayed me. It's got sick. It's like, well, how many messages have you ignored or suppressed with medicine? Or, it's okay. So that's the one aspect of how is the guidance happening from the body. So how does the soul guidance happening? The soul guidance, we will feel also, like some people feel it in their bodies, which is when it can get confusing. Like if you have your soul wanting to step forward and courageous, and your body's going, this isn't safe, it takes a bit of discernment to go, oh, okay, right, so my body is not feeling safe with this, but my soul says go, right? Which one am I going to follow, and how am I going to make sure that my body's okay with it, my soul's okay with it, whichever experience you choose. And I'm just going to digress for a second and go, you actually can't do life wrong. Yeah. Like as far as the soul's concerned, if you are breathing and you are having an experience, the soul's good with that, because that's what it's here for, And as a human, it's much nicer if your soul is like tucked in close and leading the way. But, the soul's not really overly attached to you not being homeless. But, speaking as a human, I think having a home is a really good idea, right?
Yeah.
Where was it coming from? So yeah, so our soul speaks to us with sensations as well. And some people feel it in their bodies. Some people feel it just sort of next to their bodies. So I tend to feel it in my energy layer that's sort of right next to my bodies. And it and it can feel like a tingling, or it can feel like, goosebumps, or it can feel like a contraction, or it can feel like an opening. So the key thing for soul messages is it's subtle, right? You've got to actually pay attention. Sometimes it can be things like you just know, right? Like you ask yourself a question and you just know. Mm-hmm. Sometimes it can be a sentence. So one of the coolest bit of guidance I've actually remembered, because I'm not usually very auditory, is I was with a patient and I was stuck. And I literally took a step back and put my hands up and said, okay, I need some help right now, out loud. And I got a sentence. And sure enough, that was what I needed to know at the time, right? But most of the time, my guidance is a lot quieter than that. And it's just, like some people are visual, so they see things. Personally, I don't see things, but for example, when I'm finishing up with a patient, I'm going to just run my vision over the person's body and go, are there any areas here that feel not quite right? And if there's something still there, then I'll be drawn to that bit, because that's the question I asked. Sometimes our soul will speak to us with song lyrics. If you've got a song that's stuck in your head, what are the lyrics, or how does the song make you feel? Sometimes guidance can be in the form of an animal that you don't usually see when you're outside. And you go, oh, why did this blackbird suddenly show up in my awareness? So the thing about soul guidance is, one, it's going to be subtle. Like it's going to be, you need to pay attention to the things that are unusual, right? And we have all been trained out of that, I would say, in our society.
Yeah.
And secondly, it's super quick. Sometimes you get the answer even before you finished asking a question, and it's quiet. And so if you ask yourself a question, listen to that first little bit, because the mind's going to jump in really quickly and start telling you all sorts of stories that can be contradictory and confusing. Sometimes it helps if you put your hands on your heart and you can take a big breath and sort of focus on where your hands are, because the heart has the answers. To me, the heart is the seat of the soul. Yeah. So if you have a question and you put your hands on your heart and just let your awareness drop into your heart and then ask your question, the answer will be there. So that's how connected we are. That's how available the guidance is. It just takes a little bit of practice, and we need to learn how to trust it.
It reminds me of a couple things when I first started my journey, and I was, working on connecting with myself and just listening to the guidance or listening to my body. I would ask a question and then listen for that first quick answer, because I'm very logical and linear, and my mind would start, oh, but that can be because of blah, 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 and always that first answer was always the right one. I also believe that, for me anyway, I am recovering from having a lot of anxiety. And when I am wondering, was that my mind or my heart, my soul? I feel anxiety when it's my mind, and I feel peace and quiet when it's my soul. At a ladies retreat that I recently did, we did a little meditation, and the co-host said certain words so that we could just feel how they landed in our body and just start to become aware of that. And that was an interesting little, tool to practice becoming aware of how our body responds in different situations. So it sounds like that's kind of what you're saying. Like you have to be quiet and just listen. Like feel how the nuances in your body, feel the nuances in your energy, see what comes up in your heart or your mind, and start to pay attention to it and not second guess it with all the
Amen.
logic and anxiety that wants to come up for us.
Yeah. Observing is the key. Like, how many times do we get swept away in a train of thought? How often do we get swept away in emotions? And we are not our thoughts. We're not our emotions. We're the being experiencing or having these thoughts and emotions, right? So there's power in choice, right? So if we can take a step away and go, wow, I'm super triggered right now, right? Like I'm like boiling with rage, for example. It's like, okay, here's all this rage. Okay, so what's that rage telling me? Like my boundary's been crossed, or I'm really in a great disagreement with this, or, you've just questioned my worth or whatever. And if you can still hold that observer while you're having all these thoughts and emotions, then you go, okay, so what's actually the most reasonable way or what's the most conducive way to respond to a situation to get the outcome that I want? Sometimes it might be blowing your top. Like if somebody's walked all over you for a long period of time, they might need a great big stop in order to go, well, okay, right, that's not cool, right? Most of the time, the person that's triggered you is probably not the person who's been walking all over you. There's happened to be your field that have triggered that little package that you've been carrying around full of rage since you were 5. And then it's like, okay, well, maybe I'll just go, okay, I can feel all this rage and I'm going to respond in a calmer manner than I right now am tempted to. So like the first step, I think, is observing, and the second step is knowing I have choice in how I respond to anything that goes on for me. And then the third thing is, okay, so I'm really triggered right now. What does my soul want? And holding all of, like, I think the biggest challenge of being a human is actually holding everything at once, because that's what we're basically being invited to do, right? Especially if it's a loved one who's triggered you. It's like, okay, I love this person, and right now I'm super triggered in whichever way that is, that to me is a true art and takes a lot of practice
Yes.
to be in that space. Yeah. Mm.
Wow. This is so good. Can show a picture of your book so that people who are watching on YouTube can see it.
So the first one is called Your Body is the Portal to Your Soul. And I love trees. That's actually my artwork as well.
Oh, wow. So
Yeah.
creative. That's beautiful.
And the
And then your,
tagline is, sorry, your body has the answers, make it your best friend for life.
I love that. Make it your best friend. Gosh, I think so many people have made it the opposite, where, like you said,
Yes.
you just ignore it. It's become the enemy, whatever. Taste buds want some crappy food. The rest of the body can suck it, you know? So I love that. And then your
Can I
second,
just jump in when you're saying that?
please, yeah.
So that's the other thing. Like, if we relate to our body as the enemy, what are we doing when we interrelate with our body? We look in the mirror and go, "Oh, you're ugly," or
Yeah.
we feel our bodies and go, "Ah, oh, you've betrayed me," or "Ah, you're a nuisance," or "Ah, oh, I want to play my video game for another 3 hours before I attend to food or movement or whatever." Like, our bodies feel those frequencies of enmity that we put in there, right? And then we
Yeah.
expect our bodies to thrive and do what we want them to do. It's like trying to raise a child by telling them how useless they are the entire time. Are they going to grow up to be a functional, happy, full of self-worth and self-respect adult? Well, no, it's the same thing. So if we can look at our bodies and, like, if you have a body that you don't like very much, find the bits that you do love, like, can my hands make a beautiful meal? Can my hands create something? Can my hands hold somebody tenderly? Wow, I've got hands. That's amazing. Can my eyes see colors out there? Like, how incredible is that? Like, focus on the things that you do love, and then slowly expand it into the other parts that you might find a bit challenging. But you don't need to, like anything, you don't need to love your whole body all at once. But if you can carry the energy of love and gratitude for a part of your body, that actually suffuses your whole body, and you then got to notice your body going, oh, okay, we're okay right now. It's the same
Oh,
with
yeah.
peace or gratitude. If you're out there and you see stuff that's upsetting, it's like, have I got something to be grateful for right now? And then when you feel that gratitude diffuses your whole body and your whole being. So even if it's something tiny, if it means you're going to hold this frequency and this energy, you are changing the state of your own body and also of the world around you, right?
Mm.
Like, you talked about gratitude in your little intro video. It's like, the more grateful you are, the more you have to be grateful for, because you just see everything in a completely new light. And
Yes. And I want to encourage the audience, for those of you who don't love your body or feel like it's betrayed you, um, just find, like you said, just find one little thing that you can be grateful for. Can you walk? Do you have legs? Because not everybody can do that. Be grateful for that. Do you have eyes that can see color, hands that can hold something or make something? I know I actually did this when I was younger. I've always had a larger bottom half. Like, I never had skinny little legs, or um they're popular these days, but when I was growing up, everyone wanted a thin butt, and I did not have that. But I would be thankful that I could run. I would be I would tell myself that all the time, and I actually ran a marathon, and then I was thankful that my legs do that.
wow.
Well, and there was a time where I just realized, like, I had an uncle who died from cancer, and he was very athletic, and there came a point when he couldn't do that, and I would use that as motivation, and use that for gratitude. And eventually everything changed. So, like you said, just finding one little thing that you can be grateful for and give love back to your body.
Mm.
That's a great point. Let's segue into your second book.
Which is this one. It's called Passion to Thrive, Reclaim Your Life's Potential, Purpose, Passion, and Power.
Wow. Tell us about this one.
So this book is about, this one's primarily a women's book, although men could find it useful as well. So this is a book that invites women to try different ways of being in the world, right? So most of us are living with the impression that we're in a box. We've got to be this, we've got to do that. This is, gets my back up when people say, a woman who isn't a mother cannot be fulfilled. And that's usually a man saying it. I'm like, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Every woman is different. Every woman comes here with a different soul contract. You know, not all women want to be mothers. Not all women can be mothers, you know, like,
yeah.
What about men? You know, like men can do father or not, and that seems to be completely optional. I'm going to digress for a moment. So if a woman in Australia goes into parliament and is a parliamentarian, and her family is somewhere else in the country being cared for by somebody else, that is like treason, right?
Wow.
All the men do that all the time. You know, does anybody ever question that?
No.
Of course not, right? So, and these are the same men that they say, oh, all women should have children, right? It's like, just, the Danish hackles are coming up here. Anyway, so most of us have, you know, walk around with this cultural or family impression of, okay, I've got to be this to be a woman or to, you know, fulfill my duty to the clan or whatever it is, right? But the thing is, we have so much more available to us, right? As we're talking before, I liken it to having one of those boxes with all these different amazing fancy costumes in them. And one day you try something on and you're a princess. And one day you try something on and maybe you're a rabbit, or you're a chimney sweep, or you're a baker, or you are whatever you fancy on the day, right? And putting these costumes on is almost like an outside sign of, okay, I'm going to try this role and I'm going to try to feel what it feels like to live in this energy, you know? And archetypes are the same way. It's basically as an energy, and if you behave in a certain way in the world, you're likely going to get a predictable outcome. So, for example, if you are incredibly angry all the time, yeah, you are going to get a lot of opportunities to be angry at stuff, shall we say? Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So the archetypes that I chose roughly align with the chakras. So we've talked about mother. Then there's the wild woman. Like, take pleasure in being alive. That's what we talked about earlier. You know, like the world has got so much to offer us that we're only going to get on this planet, you know, like the foods and the movement and jumping in some water, whether it's a bath or an ocean, you know, dancing and hugging and kissing and, you know, all these things that, you know, are like physically pleasurable to do in this world that we actually came here to experience and enjoy, you know, to have all these things. Yeah. And the thing is, women who are wild women are often women in their power. So, you know, then they get rebranded as bad witches. And it's like, no, I just don't want to do what you tell me to do, right?
Yeah.
I have
Yeah.
my own agenda here. I'm going to do things my way. And then there's the warrior, you know, the part of us that stands up for ourselves and go, no, you know, or this is not just, and I'm going to throw my energy into changing this, whatever this might be, you know, whatever it is that gets your hackles up. So that's like the guardian of our integrity. You know, I will not stand for this. You will not do this in my name. You know, this is who I am, and you will consider me, right?
Yeah.
Then there's the healer. And I mean, how many women are healers, right? And it's not about being out there and doing the crystals or being the chiropractor or, being the masseuse. Like, you can be a healer just by being at the supermarket, going to the checkout and just being yourself. And the checkout person goes, oh, here's somebody who's got care and compassion in her heart.
Yeah.
Like, it's as simple as that. And I think it might actually be a lot less exhausting to be a casual healer like that than somebody who does that for a living, right?
Yeah. Yeah. For sure.
Like a healer is somebody who can hold space for another person, like, are you in pain right now? And I will let you sit with that pain until it subsides, and I'm not going to take it on my own. I'm not going to try to fix it. I'm not going to try to give you solutions. I'm just going to let you know that you're loved with you sitting in your pain right now.
Yeah.
And then there's the what do we call it? The storyteller, right? How do we use our voices? What is the story that we tell? What is the song that we sing in the world? Sorry, I'm coming ahead of myself here. How do we use our words to describe, the world to ourselves? So therefore, what is it that we focus on? What is it that we see?
Mm.
Um, what is the reality that we create as we speak with others and ourselves? Because we speak to ourselves more often than we talk to others, probably.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Then there's the what do I call that one? The wise woman, right? So that's the correlation to the sixth chakra. So this is the woman who can see the patterns behind what's going on. Like I've talked about the war thing before, like, are you pro camp A or pro camp B? And the wise woman goes, I'm actually being asked to choose war or peace at this point in time. The wise woman is someone who can see patterns in her own life and go, okay, so whenever this happens, this is how I react. What am I actually reacting to? What is it I need to dig out? What is it that I need to heal in order for this situation no longer to be a trigger for me, for example? Or, like, I guess in my books, I use a lot of that. It's actually my favorite way of being. Or if I'm in practice and I look at a body and it has a particular posture and I go, what is the thing that makes this body sit in this particular posture right now that's clearly uncomfortable,
Yeah.
And then there's the mystic, which is basically the woman that has a really deep connection to her own divine source origins, and who knows that she's multidimensional, can commune with the angels, and just knows in her bones that there's more to the realm than the 3D physical, so-called solid reality that we interact with on a daily basis. And I always like to talk about the three top ones as, okay, so up here is where you get the ideas. For example, I want to express joy in my life. And then you solidify it a little bit with your wise woman and go, okay, so how am I going to express joy in my life? And then you drop into your throat and it's like, how do I speak joy into my life? How do I express joy with it's like the first physical manifestation because it's sound waves. And then into the heart, and how do I express joy, in how I feel in the world, and then you can take it down from there. So I think it's a really cool thing to know that all these energies are available, and knowing that you can call on them. They're all yours, and there's umpteen other ones, but these are the ones I chose. And then there's the triple goddess, so the maiden, the mother, and crone, which is not a very nice word. So we should probably say wise woman for this one as well.
I like wise woman better than crone.
Yeah, right.
That a lot too.
Yeah. So, the younger self of you is available at any point in time. So to have a talk to her, in the situation, what would she admire? What would make her proud? Or go to the older part of you that already has experienced all of this, because we know time is not really a thing, right? It's just the way that we're perceiving things. So the older version of you that's been through this and already knows has all the answers. What is she telling you? So you can actually tune into her wisdom. And I'll just mention on my YouTube channel, I've made meditations for each one of these archetypes as well, so you can get to know them. So if you're in a situation where you have a really difficult time deciding how you're going to proceed, you can have conversations with each of these different archetypes and find out where they sit at. For example, new job, right? Your mother's very practical. She's going to go, okay, are you going to get enough money to food, shelter, pay for the things that you need to pay for? And are you going to be super exhausted or not, right? Like, are you going to work 12 hours a day? If so, that's probably not a good idea. You know, like the basics. Then the wild woman goes, okay, are you actually going to enjoy doing this job? Are you going to have fun having this job? Are you selling your soul and your energy and your life force for this job that, you know, actually is killing you off at a heart level? Then there's the warrior woman who goes, okay, if you take this job, are you actually sacrificing your values? Are you compromising your sense of what's right in the world to do this job? And I will just say, I do realize that not everyone is in a position to be this discerning about what job they take or don't take. Some people literally just need a roof over their heads, and that's totally fine. And then there's the healer who goes, okay, am I going to feel supported and nurtured in this environment? Is this somewhere where I can feel whole and where I can be vulnerable, where I can be, you know, interacting with people in a way? My battery's just gone low. Can I just see if I can get it working? Sorry.
That's okay.
Are you going to edit this?
Yeah, that's fine.
Good.
I'll actually put it on pause.
Good. So, and then we go to the storyteller. Will I be able to speak my truth in here? Will my new ideas for this job be heard? Can I express myself if there's something that doesn't sit right with me here? You know, and then the wise woman would go, is this a place where I can use my creativity or my skills in a way that is helpful and conducive in the world? And the divine is going to say, well, will I be able to stay connected to the divine while I am in this situation, in this job? So each one of these archetypes is going to have a different angle on what it is that you're trying to do. Most of us will find that they're most comfortable or have a regular thing that they sort of move in mostly. Like when I actually wrote the book, I was like, oh yeah, definitely healer, you know, like look at what I do for a living.
Yeah.
But the more I wrote about it and the more I interacted with these different archetypes, the more I realized that I actually was able to embody all of them just by knowing what they felt like and how they move in the world, right? So again, we're back to choice. You know, which one of these are you going to listen to? You know, which one of these, you know, do you go to the job and say, okay, I will take this job, it's mostly okay with me, but I need this changed, you know, otherwise I'm not interested, you know. So they're like these each have their own kind of wisdom that we can draw on at different times.
It seems like even in your example, or you kind of said on a side note that you understand that somebody might just need a job so they have a roof over their head, but it seems like even in that situation, one could call on each of these archetypes, and it might make that job even better instead of just bearable. I need a job, you know, which maybe is the mother archetype. I like how you associate them with the chakras so that you can just, it gives me like a visual of, okay, next, you know.
Yeah.
And that's I like that, because like you said, most of us have one that we're more natural coming from. And my question earlier was, are we born with it or do we learn it? And then you answered the question that we have access to all of them at any given time. It's just becoming aware of what that energy would be like.
Absolutely. Yeah.
That's very empowering, because you said in the beginning that so often women feel like we have to be something, or we're told we should want to do this. You know, like for me, mother wasn't a big one for me. I learned, you know, my children are adopted. So same, like, you know, it's so ingrained. If you don't give birth, you never have the full experience of being a mom. Like, I'm good. Like, I've seen it.
Total eye roll. Total eye roll.
Yeah.
You know what?
I'm good.
That's another bugbear of mine. Like, you know, people go, oh yeah, no, I want a child, but I want my child. I want my genes. I want a mini version of me. I'm like, why are you really having this child? Like, if you want to love a child, literally any child should do, like
Yeah.
if you want to raise a child, then whether it comes from your body or not should be secondary. A child is a child,
Yeah. Yeah. That's how I felt. But I just love that. It's very empowering the way that you present this.
That's the idea. Yeah. It's
I
all
love.
about, like, the other aspect of the passion to thrive in particular. I wasn't telling everybody I was writing a book for a long time, because everybody's writing a book, right? But I did tell this one patient of mine, and I knew that she had been through such deep trauma, and yet she'd got through that, and she had met a beautiful man who just adores the ground she walks on, and is such a beautiful person, and like, if you come out of a really abusive relationship where your husband will throw you down the stairs while you're pregnant with one child and holding the other in your arms, like, that's a massive leap, right? That's incredible. And she said, oh, well, if you want to interview somebody for your book, I'm happy to do that. So then I went out and found 7 women at different stages of life and interviewed them about their lives. I knew that each of them had been through particularly interesting and challenging times in their lives, and kind of come out the other end being shiny, beautiful beacons. And the idea was, look, if you are in a really hard situation, it's not just you. There are other women who have been here and they have come out the other side, right? What's happening to you right now is something that's happened to you. It's your story, but it's not who you are, and it's nothing about what you're worth or what you deserve, right? So, don't make what happened to you in the past be your present.
Oh,
And there are tools to get out of it, and these are the tools. And a lot of people find the interviews particularly inspiring, and also horrifying, because of what the women did go through.
wow. Wow.
Mm.
It's kind of like you said in the very beginning of this interview. Um, you had your own journey of uh, learning that you're valuable just for being, just for existing. I have my journey of that. And I think that is, that's a common journey that I hope everybody gets to experience, because sometimes we get stuck in, like you said, the past becomes the present, it becomes the future, it becomes your everything. And that's just not true. And you don't have to be a certain archetype. You don't have to fit into a certain box in order to be valuable and
That's
valued.
right. Yeah.
I love that.
Yeah. Yeah.
So you've mentioned your YouTube channel. How do our
Mhm.
guests reach you? If-
So the easiest way is probably just looking at my website. So that's www.irisangelys.com. And on the website, there's links to all the various different things that I offer.
Okay.
Or you could go to YouTube, which is just at Iris Angellys. And then on Facebook, I'm on Passion to Thrive Facebook page. I've also got one called Author Iris Angellys, because anyway, Facebook. I'm also on Instagram, but quite reluctantly. So I'm not sure if I want to send people there particularly. But
Don't
if
mention
they,
it then. I'll find it.
yeah, on the YouTube too, like if I do a blog, I will speak it and put it put it on my website, and then put it on YouTube as well, so you can hear me saying it. And I've got tons of stuff on that YouTube channel. My poems are on there, and podcasts and little snippets from the books and all that sort of thing are on there. So
Wonderful. So I have 2 questions for every guest. And
mhm.
my first question is, other than your own books, what is one book that you would recommend that our listeners read?
Oh wow, that's a big question. I don't know how many books I've read along the way that have been significant.
I know it's always a big question, especially for the authors.
Mm. Do you know what? I'm gonna not do what's expected of me and tell you a genre instead,
Okay.
which is fantasy books. And the reason why is because with fantasy, there's this author who creates this entire world with a completely different set of parameters as to how the reality works and particular challenges that the characters overcome and grow from. And I started reading fantasy when I was, I don't know, 20 or something, 21. And the thing is, it teaches you how malleable reality is. Yeah? Does that make sense?
Yes.
And it teaches you that magic is real because it is, you know, and it teaches you that miracles can happen because they can, and they do every day. Every breath is a miracle.
Yeah.
And I think one of the reasons why, you know, I do love my mind. It's super flexible and creative and like really random and lateral. And, you know, I love how it works. And I think the reason why, and also the pattern seeing that I was talking about before, I think the reason why is because I've read all these different fantasy books for the last 30 years. And, you know, in terms of other pivotal books, the one that's coming up in my mind right now is Conversations with God. Was a really, Neil Donald Walsh was a really lovely thing to read. And out of one of his books came this question: what would love do? So at any point in time, if there's something that's not quite right, ask yourself, what would love do? And obviously include yourself in the loving, right? Like, this is not about everybody else. This is about you as much as them. What is the solution to this particular situation or problem where everybody gets to experience the highest possible frequency of love in this moment?
Oh, that's good.
So I'm gonna name those.
That is beautiful. And then what is one thing that you wish everyone in the world knew?
How powerful gratitude is.
Mm,
Like, I started practicing gratitude as an active practice when I was 33, and that was such a pivotal thing for me. And again, like I said before, you know, like, if you feel gratitude, it doesn't matter how big the something is that you feel gratitude for. In fact, if you can feel gratitude for really small things, you're going to have a lot of things to be grateful for, right? So I would recommend go for small things if the big things are difficult to come by, you know, because when you hold the frequency of gratitude, you magnetize to your life more things to be grateful for. And the other superpower of gratitude, and it changes your interactions with other people, right? Like, it's
yeah.
such a high frequency that everything around you will change and up level just because you're carrying that frequency as a conscious practice. And once you practice it long enough, when you are in a situation that's really difficult and you're in these emotions that are just so hard to be with, you can hold gratitude at that very moment, because you know at the other side of this, you're going to come out and you're going to be grateful for this experience because it let you walk into your next level of magnificence. And yes, it really, really sucks right now, but I will be really grateful for the gifts that this particular situation gave me once I'm through this, you know, and I will get through this because I always have so far, you know.
Always, always.
Gratitude is the miracles and magic ingredient in life. You know, a life without appreciation and gratitude to me is pretty bland. But if you can, what I did, when was that? I was a bit later in the piece, my early 40s. A friend of mine said, well, keep a gratitude journal. So I did.
I was
said,
just
keep
going
it.
to ask about that.
Yeah. He said, keep it for at least 3 months. I think I did about a year. I'm really proud of myself for doing that. And to start with, I would do bullet points, right? So today I'm grateful for my house, my husband, my job, right? But then after time, I realized that, no, I actually need to write, I am grateful for my house. I am grateful for my husband. I am grateful for my job. By actually writing by hand, I am grateful, I am grateful, I am grateful, at least 3 times a day, if not more often, it activates the neural pathways in a different way, and it really wires you really deeply to be actually tuned into gratitude. So that is something I would recommend anybody to do, and it's easy, right? Like, just commit to writing down 3 things every day that you're grateful for. I'm grateful for this, and if you've got more, go for it. You know, like, it might be, oh, I'm grateful for hot shower in the a hot shower, you know, running water in my house. For crying out loud, how many people don't have that, right? I'm grateful for all the interactions I had today with people who appreciated my life. You know, I am grateful for Jeri right now, because we've had this super cool conversation. I was so excited to talk to you today. You know, like, there are so many things to be grateful for. And even if it's really difficult and tricky, there will always be a little something that we can be grateful for. I can remember, when I was getting towards the end of my relationship with the husband that I told you about, I remember sitting having lunch and I was looking at a little sparrow and I gave it a crumb and it went and ate my crumb. And I was like, oh, that's really sweet. That was a really sweet moment, and I still remember that 30 years later. 30? Not quite. Anyway, this little sparrow gave me so much joy at that point in time. And I was really grateful for that little interaction with this animal that, didn't have to do that.
Yeah.
So, even when the going is at its toughest, there will be something to be grateful for. And if you're on your deathbed, you can be grateful for having had this life, and you be grateful that you get to go on the next big adventure now. Like there is always something to be grateful for in every situation.
That's so good. Iris, I've taken so many nuggets from this conversation already. So many. I might have to listen to it a few times. Thank you for sharing your wisdom. And I just want to encourage our listeners with a couple of nuggets that I took. First of all, you can't do life wrong. And when you're feeling like you might be doing life wrong, ask yourself, what would love do? And then take a moment to be grateful and write down 3 things that you are grateful for. Iris, thank you so much for being here with me today. I really appreciate it. I really enjoyed it.
Thank you so much. I totally loved our conversation. So wonderful. And I really appreciate your light and what you're doing in the world.
Thank you. Well, it's we're kindred souls. I just want my light to light other people's light and allow their light to light other people's lights. And like we said throughout this podcast, one day there will be no war.
Absolutely. And that's how we do it. One person at a time.
Yes.
Yes.
Thank
absolutely.
you.
Such a pleasure.